Hi, I'm Jay Spock, and thanks for opening this video. In my last blog, I talked about the potential long-term impacts that this pandemic might have on organizations, and I discussed how companies should start discussions about what the new normal, or new abnormal, will be for them long-term. I also promised to get some qualitative data on how my colleagues and clients across many industries and business models, past and present, have been affected by the lockdown and how they see things playing out and what they think the longer-term challenges will be once there's a reliable vaccine. Well, I've got some answers and I'm anxious to share them with you and let you know what they said. However, in order to keep these videos somewhat bite-sized, I'd like to give you an overview in this clip, and then you can follow up by looking below on the email and find out where to click for more detail on certain subjects. So, who are these people I talked with? Well, they were CEOs, division heads, functional heads, from startups, medium-sized, global mature businesses across information services, web and e-commerce services, agriculture, entertainment, financial services, retail marketing, healthcare, and consulting. Now, what immediately became clear was that the majority of the firms I spoke to, thankfully, didn't have to lay off or furlough large numbers. The few that had to were because their customers were in entertainment and leisure, and obviously no one was going out. And the others were in retail, and they had shut stores and cleaned out processes and cut back on shared functions. The entertainment jobs will almost definitely come back. Retail, not so much. The first thing leaders said was that employees, on the whole, were loving working at home. However, some said some cabin fever was starting to set in, making them realize that the ideal would be a combination of home and office work. Another positive, I was informed, was that productivity was up by all measures. Only one firm had seen some loss of accuracy in the past couple of months, and maybe that's because of the same cabin fever. In terms of performance during the lockdown, companies with digital business models, or whose product helped people navigate in a digital world, well, they did better than businesses that depended on person-to-person engagement. I suppose there's no surprise there. In terms of the future, studies show that only about 40% of the American workforce can work from home. And that 40% includes most of your white-collar and knowledge workers. For the leaders I interviewed, who actually manage this population, opinions ran the gamut from we're going to all be contract freelancers eventually at one end of the spectrum, and things are just going to go eventually back to completely normal. That's the other end of the spectrum. However, the majority of the people I spoke with felt flexibility would be the order of the day. This will be mainly driven by employees who realized that their work did not suffer at home and their quality of life greatly improved with a flexible schedule. Also, younger hires will start to make flexibility a key requirement, and it will be a significant portion of a candidate's decision about which firm to go to. Click on Structuring the Workplace in the New Normal in the email to hear more about how companies plan to handle being flexible about whether to go back into the office or not. 201, all the folks I talked to said the COVID experience will have an impact on how we manage people. Managing a hybrid workforce in which some of your reports are in the office and some are remote will put all kinds of new pressures on managers. Traditional micromanagers are already finding life difficult. Leaders who place a lot of value on managing by walking around will have to adjust or prepare for really, really long walks. Click on Managing the Hybrid Workforce in the email for details on all the issues, including managing with Zoom or whatever its successor is. But here's the big headline on managing. This experience will hasten a shift from managing by input to managing by output. Metrics and goals will replace the way many managers traditionally keep tabs on workers by assuring that they spend a lot of time at their desks. And there are even bigger implications to this, so click on that video for some more. Many people I interviewed said that the COVID experience had accelerated some trends that were already in the works, like the need to digitize and automate processes, like approvals, signing, reviewing, those sorts of things. Another area that will be impacted is how formally companies do performance management and succession. And along with that, employees' career development. Why is that important? Well, a hybrid workforce has a real impact on a person's ability to form and present an employee brand. In the hybrid world, an employee may not be seen as much by senior management, so a great attitude is not readily apparent. And in some ways, even our vision of our colleagues are going to be reduced to these little boxes on the border of our screen. So how do we address this? With a more formal focus on succession and performance reviews, and that's going to be critical. With more regular performance feedback, also the use of high visibility projects to put performance in front of key leaders. So click on Career Progression in the New Normal for some more examples and some ideas in this critical area. Now, what about culture in the new normal? A lot of people talked about that. How do we articulate our values when we're remote and all over the place? So much of our culture is about relationships, and that will work for a percentage of people working in the office, but what about for people who are remote? This is going to put new pressures on leadership to clearly articulate values, refer to them, model them at every opportunity, and put a new emphasis on facilitating trust and driving good relationships across the organization. Leaders I spoke to felt this would be a real challenge in the new normal, but they felt that it's one they could step up to. Some other key insights quickly, in no special order. First, we all put a certain amount of non-standard ways of doing things when we're co-located. A hybrid workforce will put a great emphasis on standardization of processes and procedures. Since we can't see how people are doing things, we have to drive standardization. Also, there's going to be a broad rationalization of a company's space requirements, so a hard look is coming for commercial real estate. Also, the more customers can interact with you remotely, the more comfortable they will feel working with you. Sales may be the one department that goes back to the old way more quickly. While most salespeople are realizing that they can do a lot more without traveling, once travel's available, there'll always be a competitive drive to be the one who's meeting with the client face to face. Here's another one. Business casual is here to stay. Look, I'm not even wearing a jacket and tie myself. Companies may also never buy another desktop computer again. And geography is going to play a smaller role in hiring. If you're in New York and the best person for the job is in Seattle, why not have her work remotely? And finally, a few questions came up in people I interviewed. Like legal and HR folks have always told us not to share too much about our personal lives at the office. However, the leaders I spoke to were scheduling Zoom sessions regularly just to talk about how people were doing, their kids, their pets, with an eye to promoting collegiality and to help allay the potential impact of loneliness and feeling of being disconnected. So what's best? Share? Don't share? More human connections? More professional approach? What? We'll see. What will be the impact of a renewed and stronger call for social justice and the elimination of bias? Will this be an area candidates are asking about during the hiring process? What will organizations do to answer the call? And what impact will their efforts have on their overall brand? And while we're postulating, here's another question. Will the fact that more and more people are self-managing due to remote working, over time, mitigate the need for as many middle managers? Maybe, maybe not. Perhaps the biggest question is this the last of these pandemics? If the threat becomes more present in people's minds, the whole practice of strategic planning is going to change. Scenario planning will rule the day, as companies have to account for multiple possibilities, including future shutdowns. Finally, If I heard one term more than any other in my interviews, it was this: relationships. The new normal will result in an even greater reliance on trust and relationships in the workplace, since we're not seeing each other, or going out to lunch, or meeting in the cafeteria. Relationships have always been the secret sauce of an organization's success, and they'll be even more critical now. And yet, only a few companies know how to assess the quality of relationships, never mind know how to improve them. Now, we did most of these interviews in the late summer and early fall, and we're now into the fall, and as we were warned, we're seeing a third spike in cases in the US, Europe, and elsewhere. So it looks like we'll be in this space for a long time. And this underscores the overall challenge for leaders, which is, how do I go forward in an unclear environment, in an inclusive and aligned way, making sure my leadership team is on board? And these are all areas that require hard choices and a complete airing of all possibilities. And I can help with those conversations, and we can do them virtually. I also encourage you to play the clips in the links below that offer a deep dive into some of these thornier issues. So, in next month's video, I'm going to talk about a new scalable tool and process to discuss, improve, and harness the power of relationships and drive trust in organizational success in the new normal. So watch your inbox for that. Or don't. After all, I'm only talking out loud.